my talk. Here we go. How he said he living life as a gringo. Where you question where you fit in every time you mingle. They say you do this with not enough that. My rapping is really bad. This life as a gringo.
Yes, hello and welcome to another episode of Life as a Gringo. I am Dramos, of course, and it is Thursday, so it means it's time for our Thursday Trends episode. I am flying solo on today's show. I feel like I sound crazy right now. I apologize in advance. I got sick again. I feel like I'm always getting sick. I got super sick yesterday and was in bed all day. Thankfully, I was able to pull it together today to record this. I know we are a little bit late, but I was dead to the world yesterday, so my apologies. But we here. I sound a little bit crazy. Don't mind me. Let's get into these stories, though, right? There's a lot going on. I'm gonna cut out the nonsense, trim the fat a little bit, and we'll just start talking about these stories. Because today, Shakira told Jennifer Lopez to hold her beer. She has a ridiculous take that she wanted to get out there into the world so she can get dragged on the internet as well. So we'll talk about that. We will talk about Florida's ban on abortion and how it's putting the lives of Latinas at risk. We will also talk about artists calling for AI protection. This is a really interesting conversation that I feel like I haven't touched on yet that is important. So we'll touch on it. And then, man, somebody who is just doing some incredible work that I would love to see replicated. We'll honor them in our Mi Gente segment. Also in our Ask A Gringo segment. Y'all know I got to get your take on this whole Shakira thing and feminism in general. So we'll touch on that. Lots to get into in today's show. So let's just get into it, man. We'll dive into the BS, the nonsense, in a segment we call For the People in the Back.
Say it louder for the people in the back. Say it louder for the people in the back.
All right, so let's start with Shakira, and this is from wearemetoo.com, but I've been seeing this go around on various blogs and things like that on the social media platforms. Shakira's views on Barbie and emasculation causes a stir on social media, right? Now, from wearemetoo.com, they said the Colombian star said in a recent interview with Allure that her sons, quote, absolutely hated Barbie. They felt that it was emasculating, and I agree to a certain extent. I'm raising two boys. I want them to feel powerful too while respecting women, she added. For a woman who became famous for her rebound songs and who turned her ex-husband's infidelity into a feminist anthem, these kinds of statements are contradictory to say the least. Again, according to wearemetoo.com. And I didn't put a proper pause in there between the quote and then the opinion that followed it. I apologize, but just to clarify, her quote ended when she said, I'm raising two boys. I want them to feel powerful too while respecting women. This quote here is from Shakira. Okay, so this isn't the opinion part of it anymore. And I sound so gross right now. I'm so sorry if like you're hearing me sniffle around. I'm trying my best. I'm fighting through right now to get through this. Talking doesn't help. I can't really talk when my nose is all crazy like this. But anyway, Shakira says, I like pop culture when it attempts to empower women without robbing men of their possibility to be men, to also protect and provide, she said. Adding she believes in giving women all the tools and the trust that we can do it all without losing our essence, without losing our femininity. I think that men have a purpose in society and women have another purpose as well. We complement each other, and that complement should not be lost. According to the singer, just because a woman can do it all doesn't mean she should. Now, this is a pretty extensive article. I'm going to leave a link to it, as I always do, in the show notes, because they do go on to sort of talk about, feminism and Latinas and sort of some of the norms and responsibilities that Latinas have had to bear and take on, right? So it's a pretty in-depth article beyond just this Shakira commentary. And I'm a little bit, I just had like a meltdown there because these are touchy topics, by the way. So when I talk about it, when I touch on these things, I first of all just want to say something, right? I want to touch on a couple things here. I think most of us don't actually know what the hell feminism is. And I mean that men and women. I mean that as people who are claiming to be feminists, right? And I'm going to be bouncing around between when we do this here and in the Ask A Gringo segment. But I do think we live in this world where it's like you're not allowed to have your opinion, or else you take on the sort of worst version of whatever the opposite side is, right? So it's like, okay, if you have a critique of, I don't know, let's just say Shakira, you're a misogynist, right? Even if your critique has nothing to do with her being a woman. And I'm getting into the sticks out here with a lot of different things. So just run with me here. I think and I'm going to save that actually for the Ask a Gringo segment, because I feel like that fits a little bit more in line with the question that I posed in there. But for the case of Shakira, I think it's what's sort of missing here is nuance. I think people are failing to recognize nuance. They're failing to recognize artistry. They are taking things personally and applying it to themselves rather than just sort of observing what the message is. And I think that's part of the problem with feminism and all these different things. And I'll dive into, I think, a bit deeper of kind of my thoughts on all of this. But I think in general, we are a bit self-centered and also not educated enough on a lot of topics of conversation, right? So Barbie, for example. This is a movie that was obviously meant to empower women, right? And I've seen the movie. I personally enjoyed the movie. I thought it was powerful, and I received the message, right? But a lot of people are going to sort of just look at it on the surface, and spoiler alert for anybody who hasn't seen it yet, Barbie leaves the Barbie world, and when she leaves it, it's in, great health, right? There's a female president. The world is operating amazingly. When she comes back, Ken has taken over, and the men are basically destroying all of Barbie world, basically, right? This idea that they left the men in charge, they've now destroyed it. It's a fucking movie. It's meant to give you the most extreme version of things to send the message. That's it. It's not meant for you to take it personally. It's not. I feel like I don't want to call people stupid. I don't want to do that. But it's nuanced, man. And it's entertainment. The message is far more effective when we give you the extreme version of the consequences, right? Because if I give you the mild version of it, it's not going to hit home as hard, right? You're not really going to receive the message that is at play there. But in a movie like Barbie, where it's meant to be entertaining, there has to be a villain, or there has to be conflict. That's what it is, right? That's what movies and storylines are. So for you to not be able to explain that, and I don't understand. I don't expect kids to necessarily get nuance or get that this is literally just storytelling to give you an example, right? To drive home the very important point that they're trying to make. But as a parent, that's what you would explain to them. Like, hey, this is the most extreme version of it. It's entertainment and it's fantasy meant to give you a bit of a story, right? As to why it is important for people's voice to be heard, or what it maybe felt like for women in the past when they didn't have rights, when they couldn't vote, when they, were just meant to be Susie Homemaker, when they have been held back from, gaining career advances, when they haven't been paid equally in comparison to their male counterparts, right? This is what it feels like. It feels like the world is absolutely against them. And in certain cases, it is, right? That's all you have to explain to them. It's just an intellectual conversation. And unfortunately, I feel like in today's world, we don't have many of those. People want to have a rash, strong opinion based upon reading a headline, right? And that is I think, part of the problem here. We lack the patience to actually dig deep and create an intelligent conversation or dialogue or opinion based upon collecting information and actually really processing it, right? And again, I'm not shitting on Shakira's kids, but her as an adult, that's what she could have explained to them, the nuance of it all, right? that this is what it has felt like for women. Now, to her point, I think we do go to extremes oftentimes of women feeling like, and I'm generalizing here, don't shoot the messenger, I'm generalizing, but often the narrative on social media is like, men are trash, we don't need them for anything except for whatever, sex or something like that. And that narrative has been, whatever, I'm not going to get me in trouble here. But like, I'm just thinking of like, I'm thinking of like random TikTok videos I see, and obviously I don't think that that's a great gauge of like, the world, but it kind of is. It kind of is like the cool, normal thing, in the name of like, of feminism, that we're gonna shit on men and talk about how worthless or useless or trash they are. And listen, there's a lot of trash men out there. I have guy friends as well that I'm just like, man, get your shit together, bro. But anyway, that's a topic for another conversation. And I understand that is not actually feminism. I believe in feminism. I love the movement. I think all these things are important. But what happens is these are intellectual concepts. And when you present them to people who lack intellect or just lack the desire to actually think about something in an intelligent manner and really think it through, they then run with it with a superficial sort of understanding of it and cloud the entire conversation as a whole. And I think that is sort of what we're seeing here, where it's like, no, the Barbie movie doesn't emasculate men. If you think it emasculates men, you have a fifth grade probably understanding of society and feminism and all these different things, right? It's literally just, again, you're giving the most extreme version of something as it means to teach a lesson, right? So yeah, when and I'm not here to talk about anybody's IQ or anything like that, but I think this is also what the part of the problem is when you sort of live by what celebrities do or don't say. Celebrities are just like you and I. Some of them incredibly intelligent and intellectual. Others, not so much. They're just talented at what they do. So the problem becomes we listen to people because they have fame, money, or power who aren't necessarily what you would call intellectual, but have an opinion just like anybody else does, except they have a platform to get it out to millions of people because of who they are. That doesn't mean that their opinion is a valid one, nor one that we should run with and have, I don't know, an overabundance of weight put on. But that's sort of like the world that we live in. That's kind of what we're seeing sort of here. I think you have to look at things from an intelligent perspective at times and not just what's going on the surface. And I think something like Barbie is meant to sort of give you surface level comedy and nostalgia because of the brand Barbie itself. And it's supposed to be entertaining because it is entertainment. So they, of course, have to create these dramatic and extreme situations. But to really get the message, you have to intellectually look at what's being presented to you and be able to look beyond just the surface level entertainment part of it. And I think that's what someone like Shakira failed to do. And then because she's Shakira, she goes and speaks to a national magazine about it, and the internet runs crazy with it. And now we've clouded this entire conversation about feminism and the emasculization of men, which we will dive into a bit deeper in As A Gringo. And again, this is my opinion, by the way. Like, I also want to like drive home the idea that you don't have to agree with me on everything that I say. You just have to know that when I say something, it's coming from a good place. Like, I have good intentions, right? I think we oftentimes don't give the benefit of the doubt to people. We're so quick to like choose sides that we're like, oh, I disagree with you. Now you're a terrible person. You're this, you're that, right? I've seen it on social media when I post something, and it's like people are quick to call you the worst thing in the world because they don't agree with your opinion. But they ignore everything else that you've done or everything else that you obviously stand for. And just because they don't agree with one take, you're now written off as a god-awful person. I just think that that's a horrendous way for us to like get to have intelligent conversations and to really kind of get to the bottom of this thing called life. So just also throwing that out there. Now let's move on to something that's a bit heavier. We're going to talk about Florida's ban on abortion. Now, in 30 days, there will be a near total ban on abortion in Florida. On Monday night, the state's Supreme Court upheld a 15-week existing prohibition and allowed a strict new 6-week ban to take effect in a month. According to reports, the court has, quote, cut off nearly all abortion access across the South. This will affect more women seeking abortions in the first trimester than any other single abortion ban to date. While voters will eventually decide in November if the right to abortion is constitutional or not, millions of women will bear the brunt of this decision until then. So there's a lot going on here. I'm going to just kind of read through a few of the things. I want to make sure I get some of the facts in here, aside from just like the opinion part, right? So you had Florida Supreme Court decision on Monday sets the stage for a draconian new reality in reproductive rights, according to the New York Times. The decision, quote, overturned decades of legal precedent. The court ruled that the state's constitution privacy protections do not extend to abortion. This effectively allows Florida to ban the procedure after 6 weeks of pregnancy, while the court ruled 4-3 that a proposed constitutional amendment that would guarantee the right to abortion, quote, before viability, usually around 24 weeks, could go on the November ballot. Activists are calling it a politically motivated decision, you think. And then they also say, quote, this ruling puts politics over the health and well-being of people who need care, their families, and their communities, said Lupe M. Rodriguez, executive director of the National Latina Institute for Reproductive Justice. So obviously a lot of scary, politically motivated stuff. I mean, this topic of abortion, unfortunately, is not going anywhere. It seems like we're just getting more and more extreme. And I like this article because they talk about who's actually really going to be affected when these things happen, right? So they say in the end, Latinas and women of color are, again, the most impacted. Along with Charo Valero, Florida state manager of the Institute, Rodriguez warns of this decision's impact on Latinas, saying, quote, abortion bans do nothing to protect anyone's health or safety, and we know that the impact will fall hardest on Latinas and other communities of color. They added in a statement. Furthermore, the most recent data support this assertion. According to a report by the National Partnership for Women and Families, nearly 6.7 million Latinas, 43% of all Latinas ages 15 to 49, live in these 26 states. So you're saying that nearly 6.7 million Latinas, 43% of all Latinas ages 15 to 49, are living in just these 26 states. And these 26 states have banned or are likely to ban abortion. We represent the largest group of women of color impacted by current state bans. And obviously by we, they mean Latinas. Again, this is a extensive article. I'll leave a link in the show notes. It's just more of the same. Like, I don't really know, I don't have like a take on this one because it's like, it's just scary. And again, those who have the money, those who have the means, those who have the access, this doesn't mean shit to them. They can go fly to states that are not imposing abortion bans, and they can go ahead and do what they want. It's going to affect those who don't have the money or stature. It's going to affect particularly communities of color who are already marginalized, and it's just a scary sort of time. And I feel like I say this constantly, but there really is no line anymore as far as how far a politician is willing to go to win a vote. They literally will do whatever it takes, regardless of whose life they're putting in danger, just to secure a vote from their radical fan base. And that, I think, is what's scarier than anything else. It's like there really is no line anymore, right? There's no moral compass anymore. It's just what next crazy fucking thing can we do to secure more votes from our base? And yeah, that is an insane way to be living, a scary place to be as a country. And I just bring it up. I talk about it because I don't want it to get swept under the rug or anything like that, or for us to normalize these crazy actions from these people. But I don't have a solution. I think the only good thing here is that if this ends up on the ballot in November, people can use their voices and decide against it, right? I believe in Ohio that was one of the things as well, that it was on the ballot, and those who are in favor of pro-choice won that battle. So, that's all we could do. Again, like they said, until November, this could wreak havoc on a lot of people's lives and change the course of a lot of people's lives, unfortunately. But, we have to keep having these conversations, keep being aware of it. And those of you who are in Florida, if you disagree with this, you will have your chance to voice your opinion in November, it sounds like. So that's it. That's all we could really say. I understand the importance of these stories. And obviously I want to talk about them because they're important. But I also it's hard to not get a little bit. I'm like a person who wants like a beginning, middle, and end. I need closure. And with these stories, you never really get closure because it's just a reminder of how fucked up the world is right now. So I always get a little down when I read this stuff, and I feel like I don't have an actionable step for people. But that's unfortunately the world that we live in. And when we have a chance to vote and have our voice heard, we do that, or we just have a conversation about it and make sure people are aware of what is going on. Right. That's all we could do. Unfortunately, right now. Last story I want to get into here from the nonsense, the BS. Let's talk about AI and the fears that a lot of people have as far as artists go, right? With music, we're talking about specifically here. And this is a really interesting conversation. I want to dive into it a bit because obviously, I love music. It affects someone like myself. I have worked in the music industry and I dabble in it still. But AI is really interesting. It's something that obviously has the ability to help out so much, and already is in a creative aspect. I think, especially for people who are like small entrepreneurs, small creatives like myself, where we can automate certain things and give it to AI, and because we don't have a huge budget, it allows us to save money there. Like certain things like graphic design and Canva and all these different things, or copywriting and stuff. I see the benefit there. But as with any sort of technology, like Spider-Man says, great power comes with great responsibility, right? Like social media. Social media is incredible with its ability to connect all of us and to give us all a platform to be heard. But when taken too far or not used for good, it can be incredibly scary. And actually, I was going to do this other article, but I didn't have time to really dive into it. But there was another article talking about how Meta, or Facebook, was actually selling, or did sell, private messages from users to Netflix, as a means to sort of get a better gauge of like what people are interested in. And there's all kind of, there's a lawsuit pending about that. I want to dive into it. Maybe we'll touch on it next episode when I've had some more time to research it. But again, like that kind of begins to show you these tools that we have that are incredible end up oftentimes getting put in the wrong hands and cause chaos to our society, essentially, right? Like our private messages being, that we might have had with friends, family, loved ones, are then being sold to some corporation as a means to like mine information. That's a scary thought. And again, we're all signing up for it when we, sign the terms and conditions and we sign up for a new social media platform. But it just sounds crazy when you really think about it. So AI is another one of those things we got to kind of be careful of. And people are trying, I guess, to get ahead of it now, which is good because social media, we definitely didn't do that. So you have more than 200 well-known musicians, including Nicki Minaj, Stevie Wonder, Billie Eilish, among others, signing an open letter requesting safeguards against the use of artificial intelligence for predatory purposes that imitate sounds, voices, and appearances of human artists. What I feel like anybody that's not familiar, a lot of, like, you can basically, in AI, there was like a AI Drake song, I think, that came out, or AI Weekend song that was like, doing crazy numbers. Basically, somebody can write lyrics, put it into AI, like an AI program. The AI program would then spit out what sounds like Drake or The Weeknd singing those lyrics. And to the average listener, they're not going to know if this is actually Drake or if it's AI, right? And that's the scary part. So they say, quote, in the letter, they say, quote, "This assault on human creativity must be stopped. We must protect against the predatory use of AI to steal professional artists' voices and likeness, violate creators' rights, and destroy the music ecosystem." And again, I think on the surface, if you're not very passionate about music, you could say, well, this is a bunch of rich people complaining about things, this technology changing. They're going to come for all of us, right? Like, they're going to be able to replicate what all of us do, essentially, and we're going to all be out of work, potentially, or the arts, will be so diluted and not valuable anymore whatsoever. I mean, music has basically become that because of technology, because of streaming services. Music has no real value anymore in the monetary sense, right? The streaming services have taken that away and normalized the idea that artists will create this body of work and not directly be able to get real profit or compensation for it, right? And I know that sounds, again, it's like, oh, well, these people are already millionaires. They're making money in so many other ways. Sure. But like any one of us, you are going to want to be compensated for the work that you do, right? That's just a fact. And I think, again, it might start here with the music, but where does it end at that point, right? That's what we sort of have to understand. This is just the very beginning. And if we don't begin to put guardrails in place, there's no telling where this sort of AI thing, ends up going, because the people behind it don't give a fuck about the human beings that are going to be sort of, thrown for a loop and whose lives are going to be upended. They care about their product being used and being valuable. And for them, if they can automate everything, that means, these big corporations no longer have to pay salaries and benefits and all those things. So, of course, they're going to be all about this. And that's why we, the everyday person, have to be paying attention to what's going on. Now, closing out this article, they say, in March, Tennessee became the first U.S. state to enact legislation directly intended to protect musicians from having their vocal likeness generated by AI for commercial purposes. The Ensuring Likeness, Voice, and Image Security Act, or ELVIS Act, goes into effect on July 1st, makes it illegal to replicate an artist's voice without their consent. This is according to The Guardian. The Artists' Rights Alliance is a nonprofit organization run by music industry veterans such as board member Rosanne Cash, daughter of Johnny Cash. It's unclear how the organization recruited the artists who signed the letter, which includes country stars such as Casey Musgraves, rappers such as Q-Tip, and younger indie pop artists including Chappelle Roan. The letter does not call for an outright ban of the use of AI in music or production, saying that responsible use of the technology could have benefits in the industry. However, a number of contract discussions and strikes by entertainment industry unions in 2023 were centered on concerns about artificial intelligence AI being used to make songs and scripts or create pictures and videos of performers and entertainers. So yeah, this was also a big gripe in that the big writer strike that we had, the TV and film strike we had last year. It's scary, man. People's livelihoods are at risk, and yeah, that happens whenever you bring in new technology. I get that argument, but at the same time, if we can protect people as well, we can keep the human in things that we want to be human, right? The art that is created, we have to. And for anybody who's not an artist, I guess it's probably easy to write this off as like not that important. But I don't know, man. I love art. I love music. I love creating, and it's scary to think that we could live in a world where it's just so devalued that we've taken the human part out of it, right? Because that's what makes it so beautiful, is the imperfection, is the human aspect of it, the way your mind uniquely works and then produces something out of its head. I don't know. It's just scary shit. And obviously it doesn't end with just art. This is going to be like, jobs are going to be automated to AI and things like that. And more industries, I think, need to try and put the guardrails in place before it's too late and this has become a normal part of life, just like social media. So interesting conversations. I'm curious to kind of see where all of this begins to develop. I should actually have somebody from the Artists' Rights Alliance talking about this stuff. That'd be a good episode, personally, selfishly. I'm going to look into that, making a mental note here. Now, with that said, that's the nonsense. That's the BS. Let's talk about some positivity, somebody who's doing some amazing work right now, and we'll do that in our Mi Gente segment. Mi Gente. All right, so I wanted to highlight this story here that I found to be just somebody doing amazing stuff, right? Because I'm all about, my whole thing is this. Yes, I believe we should hold the government accountable. Yes, I believe we should be fighting for the powers that be to do their part, to do their jobs, to, be human at the end of the day, treat us like human beings. But also, there are a lot of people who are incredibly powerful, be it their wealth, their fame, their status, their connections, that could be doing more. And I'm talking about celebrities, and I get in this conversation all the time, right? About when you have this blessing of a platform of access, right? Why not use it for good beyond just your own personal gain, right? There's so much beautiful change that could happen as a result. And I love highlighting people who are actually doing something like that, right? So you have Lala Anthony, who is my teenage crush from the TRL days. And I still hold out hope that maybe one day me and Lala could connect. I think we'd work well together. Just throwing that out there. If anybody listening to this is in some way connected to Lala Anthony, I'd love to maybe grab a bite one time. We'll go get some sushi or something in the city. It'd be nice. Just relax, chill out, have some conversation. Big Lala fan. Anyway, so she is an amazing human being, aside from being beautiful and incredibly talented. She's actually working to get young Black men who are incarcerated real rehabilitation. And this is beautiful, right? So she has a program called the 360 program at the Robert N. Daverin complex at Rikers Island, which Rikers Island is a infamous prison in New York that is known for just being god-awful, basically circumstances for these men to be living in. I'm not sure if they have a women's ward, but the people that are, housed there, the inmates, it's just god-awful circumstances. So in this program that she has, Lala provides mentorship, life coaching, legal services, and re-entry tools to incarcerated men aged 18 to 21. One of the many elements that make the program unique is the team's effort to foster one-on-one connections with each of the young men. And this is amazing. This is like another side passion of mine. And one day when I have maybe more mental capacity, I would love to do more things with the prison system, because it's such a sort of hypocritical thing, right? The modern prison system, right? These are people who are imprisoned for their crimes, right? And then they're sent to prison to rehabilitate them, right? Or to pay their debt to society. And you create these conditions of prison that are oftentimes worse than the real world outside, which I get it to a degree. It's punishment. It's not supposed to be club med. But you're actually, oftentimes, the stories that you hear, you're making these people into worse individuals than they were going in because of all the shit that they go through while being imprisoned, right? So most people are not being sent to prison for life. They are going to be let out at a particular time, and you're not providing them with tools to actually, be adjusted into the real world properly, right? Or to be able to be, functioning citizens. And I obviously know there's different programs and things like that, but the shit they've gone through, the trauma they go through in prison, it's ridiculous when you hear these stories. But also, the things that got them into prison, right? Like, prison should be more about rehabilitation than anything else, right? Because if you're somebody who committed a crime, whatever it might be, obviously you are lacking something in your life, and that's why you committed it, right? We're oftentimes treating the symptom rather than the disease is what I'm trying to get at here, right? So it's like, it's easy to just be like, yep, this person stabbed somebody. Now they're going to prison and you're going to pay for what you did. Okay. I agree with that to a degree. But also, if we really want to make substantial change and ensure that these people are not going to re-enter the prison system, we have to address what got them there in the first place. So yeah, the stabbing in this hypothetical situation is the symptom. But what's the actual disease? What is going on in this person's life that normalized the idea of them stabbing somebody, right? That's what should be treated, because you treat that, you're then giving that person a far better opportunity to live a normal and fulfilling life and be a productive member of society, because you have actually treated the very thing that was holding them back from being a normal, functioning, productive member of society. And I think that is what is sort of missing in today's prison system. It's like, the idea is we don't want to just throw people away and then, cruelly punish them and make them even more traumatized than they were going in. It's like the reality is most of these people are going to have to function back in normal society. So why not do everything we can to give them the best tools possible to lead happy and healthy lives, because it's only going to make our society that much better. And that's why programs like this one, like what Lala is doing, is amazing, because this is actual rehabilitation, right? Life coaching, mentorship, legal services, reentry tools. That is real rehabilitation. Because just because someone made a mistake in their life at one point doesn't mean that they are doomed. But unfortunately, the way the system is set up now, for most of them, yeah, you're just going to keep getting reinforced the worst parts of yourself and re-traumatized. And most people, a lot of times, the statistics show, will end up back in prison. But we could be doing our part to actually help people and give them the tools to be functioning, healthy members of society. I think that's what's missing in the prison system in general. Like when you think about, there's people sitting in prison for nonviolent weed offenses right now, which is meanwhile I'm driving, around my area and I'm passing by multiple fucking weed dispensaries. Like it's just crazy shit, man. Like I'm trying not to say crazy world we live in, because I feel like I say that too much, but it just doesn't add up. And then the private prisons and how they actually end up profiting. So like there's more of an incentive to keep them, full of people. And there's just, you dive into this shit, man. It's a really fucked up system. And we need more people doing their part. And I love when somebody understands that they have a platform, they have access, they have the ability to do something, and they take it upon themselves. They don't just wait for the powers that be to do it. So shout out to Lala and this work. I think it's amazing. I would love to see more things like that. Now, with that said, I want to get y'all's take on, of course, based on the Shakira story, I want to get y'all's take for our Ask A Gringo segment.
Ask a Gringo!
I have a question. All right, so this one, I got so many fucking responses and so many conflicting responses. I'm going to try and get to as many. I'm going to try to do a little bit more extra than I normally would. But people really heated about this conversation, right? And based on the Barbie conversation, based on Shakira, right? I asked, is modern feminism emasculating men? Can men not be men anymore, right? That's the, not my opinion. That is like the conversation that happens that is being derived from ones like Shakira saying that Barbie felt emasculating for men, and then talking about the idea of like, the conversation of like how there's certain things, how women can do everything but they don't want, but just because a woman can do it all doesn't mean she should, and whatever. It leads to this topic of modern feminism, right? And let's define feminism first and foremost, because I think this is where it starts. Feminism, the definition is the advocacy of women's rights on the basis of equality of the sexes. So based on that definition, this isn't about trashing the other sex or one being better than the other. Feminism just means equal rights. That's it. Equal pay, equal opportunity. That's it, right? Now, feminism in the modern sense, when you have people going to the Taylor Swift school of feminism and this very superficial understanding of it and the idea that in order to be a feminist, you have to shit on men, that's where we start getting very clouded, right? And I'm not saying that that's what Barbie was. I think Barbie used humor in that, right? But again, there was a deeper message happening. And I think I'd also like to just say, because I feel like this is such a hot button topic, I have to preface this because people be tripping. This is I'm gonna just give kind of my take on it as well, and hear your takes on it, and we could all have a nuanced conversation about it. This is what is supposed to happen. In intellectual environments, we're going to have differences of opinion. I'm going to agree with certain things. I'm going to disagree with other things. Doesn't mean both of our ways of life can't coexist together. Doesn't mean one of us is a bad person, the other one is good. There's not a winner, there's not a loser. We can have similar opinions, differences of opinions. That's the beauty of dialogue and having actual intellectual conversation. So I want to preface that because just from what I sort of like was quickly looking over some of the answers I got, we're all over the spectrum here. So I don't want to rush to judge anybody. So I'm going to read a few of the responses that I got, as many as I can, because there's a lot of good ones here. So let's see here. All right, we're going to read, let me see. Okay. At okela.podcast responded saying, thinking feminism is emasculating is wild. That's literally the patriarchy talking. I feel like people don't really know what feminism is. It's literally advocating for women's rights, equality of the sexes. If women having equal rights to men makes men feel less than, well, that only says something about those men. I think you hit the nail on the head right there. We gave the proper definition of what feminism is. Now, what I will say to that, and obviously you have a grasp of what feminism is. What ends up happening, though, we go from women advocating for equal rights, which, again, absolutely on board with. But then the surface level understanding of feminism leads to then a narrative of sort of this conversation of male bashing or sort of, I'm trying to think of my wording here, right? And by the way, this is oftentimes what, and I'm not shaming anything, right? It's like, if we want to have a real deep level conversation here, it's the same way people of color make fun of white people, right? We do that because it empowers us to a degree, because we have felt so disempowered by them for so long. So now we look for opportunities to build ourselves up. And that's human nature. I do it as well, right? And that's if you want to have a real conversation where we get really deep in the woods here, that's what we're doing. But we make fun of white people and generalize. We're doing that as a sort of, I don't know if it's a trauma response, but it's a response to what we feel like we've been dealing with for so long from that marginalized group, right? I mean, from that, as a marginalized group, I should say. And that's what that is happening oftentimes in like media, social media posts, where it is men getting shit on by women now because for so long, men were the ones in charge degrading women and not letting them have a seat at the table, right? So now the opposite response is when you get a little bit of power, when you get a voice, you sort of take on the role of almost like reverse bullying. And again, I do it when I talk about white people a lot, or I say white people. It's normal. And as I'm saying that, to a degree, I'm like, well, listen, we have been degrading women as a society for so long. We could probably, put on our thicker skin and take some of these lashings because we deserve it. We've done it for so long as men. And I'm generalizing here, right? So I am not going to fucking cry to the hills because a woman says all men are trash or something like that, right? Because again, I understand that if we're really having a deep, nuanced conversation, this is the effects of a group of people being held down for so long that now they're taking their shots where they can. I don't think it's I don't think it's useful, right? I don't think me making fun of white people is useful necessarily, right? Or I don't think it's actually doing anything. It makes me feel a little bit better, but I don't think it's actually progressing much of anything, right? It's not really moving the needle. Just like I don't think bashing Ben, while I understand why it's happening, and I'm again not going to cry about it, but I don't think it's actually, helping any sort of real progression. But that's what's happening. And again, this is us having deep conversation right now. This is what intellectual conversation is. Really fucking sweeping under the fucking couch and the sofa, right? And not getting upset at the other person because they're saying the quiet part out loud. In order for us to really progress and have these conversations, we have to be unafraid to say the quiet part out loud. And I think that's like, so don't attack me for saying the quiet part out loud when we have these conversations. If we truly want to really have these conversations, which I hope we do. So that was one response we got here. And then we're going to have, obviously, on the polar opposite over here, responses that were there's a lot of opinions on this. The polar opposite of it here, you have at Malibia says, sure is. Sassy men apocalypse is what we call it. Interesting. Also, at Ariel Grigg says, oh my God, 110%. To make a long story short, women aren't the same. So, and these are both women, by the way, saying this. And I think this is where we begin to, I feel like we're conflating a lot of different things. I think these are also the results of people not understanding what feminism is. On both sides, by the way. You have the people who don't understand the definition and want to shit on feminism because they want to just demean it, essentially, because they don't really understand what it means. Then you have the people who are claiming to be feminists that are not actually understanding what feminism is and using it as a means to shit on men, essentially, right? And it just begins to cloud the entire conversation and convolute the entire conversation at hand, right? And then I think there really is an effect of that, right? There's an effect that happens. This is why this is such a tough conversation, because it's nuanced, right? It's not just about real feminism, the definition of it. What ends up happening is like the social media definition of it, the superficial surface level definition of it ends up becoming popularized because of social media, and it becomes the narrative that takes over people's minds. So now most people don't think of feminism as the basis of equality of the sexes. They think of it as, it's women's opportunity to shit on men, essentially, right? That's what ends up happening because of things like social media, which then leads to these narratives that create really interesting societal constructs. And I think that's what we're seeing with some of these responses right here, where they're blaming feminism for men not being men anymore. Men are sassy now. Or on the other side, women aren't women anymore, right? And again, you're not blaming actual feminism. You're blaming the superficial understanding of it that social media and society has decided to run with. And I'm going to dive more into that. I want to read one of the other responses I thought led right into this as well. At DJ McReeka says, it caused an overcorrection resulting in emasculating men to a point. And I love that word. If you listen to the podcast, I often talk about overcorrections, right? Things often start with the best intention in mind, right? Like the feminist movement, women's empowerment, girl boss, all these things, amazing, done with great intentions in mind for women to step into their power, to no longer be made to feel less than, but to rightfully so be viewed as the equals that they are. But then what oftentimes happens, again, the message starts getting more and more diluted via things like social media. We start connecting things to it that actually were never originally meant to be a part of it. Then that becomes the face of this movement that once started as one thing, it now becomes something else. And that's where the overcorrection happens. And by the way, the overcorrections happen regardless of like your point of view, your political stance. Obviously, on the right, there's an overcorrection happening where Donald Trump is the voice of these people and their extremist views. But even on the left, right? And I'm somebody who has traditionally voted Democrat. On the left, you have people who are overcorrecting when it comes to, the idea of like, this is why people hate the word woke, because people are overcorrecting when it comes to that. They're offended by absolutely everything you say. You have an opinion, I'm offended, right? And this is what I was alluding to before. Right? Where I was saying, if I have an opinion on a woman, even if it's not about her being a woman, I'm a misogynist, right? I had posted a thing about Jennifer Lopez and all that was happening with her on my Instagram. And I gave sort of my opinion about her not living in her authenticity. And that's sort of where the backlash is coming from. And people who are fans of hers or didn't agree with my take rushed to not critique my take, but rushed to call me a misogynist. Nothing I said in there was mention of her being a woman. My take or my critique, if you can even call it that, because I don't feel like I really critiqued her, had anything to do with her being a woman. She just happens to be a person in the news that I'm talking about that just happens to be a woman. But the weaponization of it now is, oh, you're a misogynist if you have a critique to say anything about this person who's a woman. And that's an overcorrection, right? Now, if I said, I'm not even going to, somebody to clip this and make it seem like, because it's social media, it's all about the headline. But if I critiqued anything about her based upon being a woman, right, then that would make me a misogynist, right? Because then I'm having a critique on her based upon the fact that she's a woman. But again, that's an example of an overcorrection. And I get where it's coming from. We live in a misogynistic society traditionally where men critique women because they're women, but give a whole nother reason, right? So I understand where it's coming from. But at the same time, just because I understand the cause of it doesn't mean we then get to apply it as if that's really what's happening, right? And that's this sort of deeper conversation where the overcorrection begins to happen. Whereas now there is a real conversation about statistics stating that men are actually afraid to approach women out and about now, right? And to a degree, this is caused by men, right? I'm not taking that away. Men catcalling, men being incredibly inappropriate to women in the workplace or out and about, not having respect. Those have been very real things. And the overcorrection, of course, is the fault of those men who were very disrespectful. But now we have a new set of problems where you have another part of the population claiming that men are sassy, right? I don't remember what the wording was. Or men are no longer men because they don't have the guts to go up to a woman anymore. Or there's like, you hear this all the time on like, there's a dating crisis of people meeting in real life or things like that because men do not feel confident or comfortable going up to women because of all of the sort of stigmas that are attached to it now. Again, yes, men, you caused that, but it doesn't take away from the fact that now we have a new issue we have to address, right? And I think this whole idea of feminine and masculine and all these different things, this is like a whole nother episode that I probably could have. I'll probably get like an expert on it to really dive into it. But again, we're no longer just talking about feminism anymore. We're talking about all of these sort of derivatives of social media's version of feminism that now have made their way into our world and our society and are the topics of conversation, right? But this brings me to like, I could go into so many different things. Like even in psychology, men have a feminine aspect to them and men have a masculine aspect to them, vice versa, right? Women have a masculine, men have a feminine. Like we have each of each other inside of us, right? And there are particular gender roles traditionally, historically, that men and women have played that feel incredibly natural to us as men and women. Not to say a woman can't do it, not to say a man can't do it, but there are certain ways where you ever hear people be like, oh, I feel this guy like allows me to be comfortable in my feminine, right? Allows me to feel sort of safety. Doesn't mean you can't defend yourself, but being able to let that guard down in a healthy, safe relationship, is a positive, right? Just like for me, in a healthy relationship, I don't have to be masculine, macho, tough guy all the time. I can embrace, the softer side of myself, and only a woman allows you to really do that, right? And I'm speaking as a heterosexual male in my own experiences. Or it feels nice to be able to feel like the protector or the provider, right? Not that I don't think she could do that, but personally for myself, feels good to be the guy holding the door open, right? To be the one making sure that whatever, little stupid things, do you have gas in your car, blah, 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 whatever, right? That makes me feel good as a man to fulfill that traditional role. Doesn't make me toxic, just means that feels good. And again, if she's not comfortable with that, then yeah, I have to deviate from fulfilling that role. And I think I'm going to pause sort of to a degree on this conversation because it's so, this is an entire episode. But I think to sort of surmise all we've been talking about here, the problem is not feminism. The problem is the misconstruing of it that is done by people who don't actually understand it on an intellectual level. Then it becomes popularized on a superficial level through social media, and then we begin reacting to the superficial version of it. And that's, I think, the problem we're running into. That's where the overcorrections begin to happen, and we begin to just get into a weird place where nobody really knows how to act, right? Or nobody feels comfortable, essentially, right? In just being themselves. And I hope that made sense. Again, like, this is a really deep conversation that's deeper. The all that we're talking about is far deeper than the surface level shit that I think people are sort of seeing. And yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm canceled after this conversation. I don't know. Y'all tell me. But I just think we got to be open to hearing different perspectives and being able to, like, understand what really is or isn't the purpose of this movement, what has been diluted. It's like a good example I'll leave you with is like Machine Gun Kelly, the artist. He transitioned from making rap music to making like pop punk, right? Is the genre of rock music that he was making for like the last 2 albums. MGK, successful, popular, doing those projects. But if you're a purist of that genre of music, of rock or pop punk, you're not going to necessarily be like, this is the greatest thing ever. You're going to say, well, actually, there's been bands that are way better at this genre doing this music forever. That's who I'm a fan of, right? But MGK is the watered down version of it, the pop version of it, that then becomes appealing to the masses, right? Where the traditional pop punk bands that are like in that scene, their ceiling is a bit lower because they're not making music that is going to transition into everybody liking it, it becoming popular music, right? Because it still has that, it's not watered down enough. Then somebody like MGK comes along, waters it down just enough where it has references to the original style, to the original inspiration, but is watered down enough and sort of brought down to the 5th grade reading level. Now it becomes massively popular to everybody, to the mainstream. And that's what happens with concepts like feminism, right? The actual concept of it is very clear and concise, but there's, then going to be the social media version of it that waters it down to become something else that is a little bit more entertaining, right? Shitting on men is a little bit more entertaining. And the dialogue that happens by people that aren't intellectual reacting to it is oftentimes going to be a bit more entertaining for the masses. So then the popular definition of feminism is not the real definition of it. I think I'm fucking trying to get this concise. I'm making it even more complicated. But the version that becomes popular is oftentimes the diluted version that is not intellectual and is the 5th grade reading level version of it. And I think that's what we're seeing. That's what's become normalized, and that's what people are reacting to in their everyday lives. And again, it's not actual feminism that we're talking about anymore. That's what I think. I could be way off base. I want to get like somebody who studies this for a living, and I'll do this like a whole episode with them and just have a conversation. That's my thoughts. If I'm canceled, it's been a great run. I appreciate each of you who have been supporting me prior to this. And don't hate me if my opinion is different than yours. It's okay. I'm still the same guy. I'm still the same guy you've been supporting for 3 seasons. All right. I can have a difference of opinion than you, and we can still coexist together. I love you. With that said, let's tie everything we talked about today in a neat little bow in a segment we call Conclusion Stew.
Time for conclusion stew.
We got into it today, y'all. I'm going to quickly surmise this. Shakira's views on Barbie and whatever toxic masculinity and emasculation and feminism. We got into the woods here. I think this is an intellectual conversation. Most people are not willing to take the time to actually look at something from an intellectual point of view. And that's why we have weird opinions like this one. That's why people are mad at the world. That's why people hate men and men hate themselves, and all the conversations that we're having. It's a lack of people understanding nuance and wanting to actually have a real intellectual conversation. And instead, we have the watered down, diluted version of it. Things get misconstrued, and we end up in just a weird place as a society where people just hate everything. I don't know. I don't know what else to say about it, but I feel like I dove into that pretty deep, so I don't think we need to get any further into it. Abortion rights, man, like another exhausting topic. The only good thing is that this one is voters will eventually be able to decide in November on this one. When it comes to Florida, we just got to use the avenues that we have available. Use your vote, use your voice. If you have a platform, talk about this stuff, and do what you can to participate in these conversations in any way possible to bring to light just this horrendous part of our history right now. It's happening with women's right being taken away. You know, their right to choose is being taken away is horrendous. And furthermore, the lack of morality and a line that keeps being crossed just for the sake of gaining votes is disgusting. That's really my takeaway when I see things like this. AI, scary shit, man. And even if you're not an artist, eventually they're going to be coming for all of our jobs, regardless of what it is. And these companies don't give a fuck. The big companies love this shit. They cannot wait to not have to pay your salary and your benefits. And we have to create guidelines and put the guardrails in place early, right now, while we still can, before this whole thing gets out of hand and the world is run by robots and we take the human aspect out of every single thing. And that's the reality. I don't mean to be like doomsday-ish, but that's a real reality we potentially could be facing. And lastly, Lala Anthony doing this work to help men with real rehabilitation, incarcerated men. I love it. Again, this speaks to what's in my heart so deeply. Anybody who has a platform, access, financial means, connections, networks, it's not technically your job, but if you want to see this world be just a little bit better, which I hope all of us do, yeah, you should make it your job at the end of the day. And I love people like Lala doing this kind of work, really pushing for rehabilitation for those who made a mistake in their life and are serving their time and serving their debt to society. They should have the best opportunity to get out, and when their time is up, get out and be a positive contributing member to society. It not only benefits them, but it benefits all of us as well, to have more people out there who are, living a positive life and not one of, continuous crime and trauma eventually. So yeah, beautiful work. And that's it, man. I'm exhausted by this conversation. I was already fighting being sick, but now I'm also just exhausted by it. I feel like I was just railing on. I don't even know anymore at this point. So that's it. Weekend is upon us. Enjoy your weekend. Be safe. I'll talk to you on Tuesday with a brand new episode, of course. Until then, stay safe. Peace.